Peace, peace. This is Brother Faheem, and you're now tuned in to the Lead with Logic podcast. You know the vibes. Welcome back to the Lead with Logic podcast. I'm your humble and gracious host, Brother Faheem. Hey, thank you for coming through. Thank you for tuning in. Man, it's always so much content, always so much stuff going on, and I just try to latch on to everything, man, and try to make sense of the madness. The newest thing that's out there, man, is this Adult Survivors Act. I'm pretty sure everybody's seen it. They're not getting into it like that. What they did was they showed us P. Diddy is sued by Cassie for sexual assault. Now, as of lately, at least within the last, I want to say 7, 8 years, the Me Too movement, the Time's Up movement has been huge, right? It's been very prevalent, been very involved, and we've seen a lot of people come out. I think the biggest fish that we saw go down, the whale that the Moby Dick Time's Up and Me Too movement took down was R. Kelly. After that, I'm sorry. Before that was Bill Cosby. Bill Cosby did 36 months, but uh, he was acquitted of the charges and he was removed. Right, his sentence was cut short, and he was able to come home. But we've seen a whole lot of young ladies coming through seeking justice, right, as they should. Let me say at the outstart that I am not against women, men, or children getting justice. I'm all for it. I just think that there's a process and a way that we move forward when doing that. Now, I forgot to say this before I got started. Listen, what I want y'all to do is two things. I want y'all to go to that like button, click that thumb, click like, and also find the subscribe to Lead with Logic. Also, I'm gonna show you guys something that I have going on, something new that I haven't, and we're gonna get right back into what I was dealing with. Right, we have drum roll, please. We have the Lead with Logic store, and the way that you can go over there, the way that you can get over there is type in your search browser Lead with Logic 7. Again, that's leadwithlogic7.com. And we got some great stuff going on. Hey, you'll see, you know the vibes. But man, we got hoodies, tees that I'm always rocking, right? So yeah, man, we got different colors. You know what I mean? Couple things, right? Give you a little bit of background information, our vision, our products, and our team. That's all me. Yeah. Hottest looks at Leo Logic. Check out our exclusive line. So yeah, all that good stuff, man. All that good stuff. But head on over there and check me out. Y'all should check me right on out. But the due process of it all, right? I'm not against people getting justice. That's all a part of being civilized in a civilized society, man. Equality and justice has to be freedom, justice, and equality has to be the foundation in which we build upon. If it's not, then it's total anarchy, total chaos, right? And so, yeah, man, I wanted to get into what has been going on. So, I'm gonna share something else with y'all. We're gonna look over a few documents so we can figure out exactly what's going on, man. It's always good to base whatever your perspective, whatever your narrative, whatever your commentary is, base it in some sort of logic, some sort of objective fact, because that gives you credibility and it also makes more sense, right? It's not just you speaking, right? It's you coming from a place of being informed. And I want you all to be informed, right? All right. So, this is on the cut. This is an article called Why So Many Powerful Men Were Just Sued for Sexual Assault. Yeah, because all the men in this photo have been charged. Now, some of them might look familiar, right? You have P. Diddy there. You have uh, Mr. Jamie Foxx. You have Eric Adams and Andrew Cuomo, right? all of these guys have been charged, right? So we're gonna get into a little bit of it. I'm just gonna read a little bit of it. If y'all bear with me. It says Sean Diddy Combs, Guns N' Roses singer Axl Rose, Jamie Foxx, former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, and New York City Mayor Eric Adams. The holiday weekend saw headline after headline declare that a different famous man had been accused of sexual assault and swiftly denied all allegations. The timing is due to the Adult Survivors Act, a special New York state law that granted victims a one-time, one-year window in which to sue alleged sexual abusers, and institution survivors say enabled them. That's important. And the institutions survivors say enabled them. More than 3,000 civil lawsuits were filed thanks to the statute, which expired on November 24th, according to the New York Times. While the last minute celebrity lawsuits are getting a lot of play now, many of the lawsuits filed under the act were brought against private citizens, employers, and institutions such as prisons, the New York City Police Department, and hospitals that victims claim failed to stop sexual abuse. That's huge in the prison. That's big. This is good for that. This is very good. It's good for all people who are uh, charging or alleging, right? So they can get justice. More than 470 cases of alleged abuse at Rikers Island alone. It's a lot of sexual assault and rape that they're allowing to happen at that prison. Below everything to know about the act and the powerful individuals now facing lawsuits. So, how does the Adult Survivors Act work? In 2022, the New York State Legislature passed the Adult Survivors Act, which gave victims who were 18 or older at the time they were allegedly abused a one-year window in which to file civil lawsuits, even if the statute of limitations for their claims had expired. At the time, let me make this a little bit bigger, y'all. All right, where were we? Da, see, at the time, at the time they were allegedly abused a one-year window in which to file civil lawsuits, even if the statute of limitations for their claims had expired. At the time, New York had recently extended the period in which people could seek justice for sex crime, either in civil or criminal cases. That's big too, right? Because a lot of people don't realize what the difference between a civil case is and a criminal case. But we're gonna get into that. To 20 years, but that law did not cover claims in the past. The Adult Survivors Act, which was in effect between November 24th, 2022 and November 24th, 2023, sought to retroactively fill that gap for civil cases. In addition to allowing legal action against alleged abusers, it included an institutional liability provision allowing survivors to file claims against institutions they say enabled abuse. The legislation was modeled after New York's Child Victims Act, which gave survivors of child sexual abuse 2 years to file civil suits. Nearly 11,000 suits were filed over that period, many against institutions such as the Catholic Church, who has been sued. So here go that list of people that we looked at, right? Many prominent figures in Hollywood, the music industry, and politics have been sued under the statute. One of the first filed after the look back window opened was against former President Donald Trump. I know a lot of people probably gonna clap when they hear that. Make them clap to this. Writer Jean Carroll accused Trump of sexually assaulting her in 1996 in May. A jury found Trump liable for sexual abuse and defamation, awarding Carroll $5 million in damages. The former president has continued to deny the allegations. Harvey Weinstein, Bill Cosby, both of whom have been accused of sexual violence by dozens of women in recent years, so sued under the act alongside institution the plaintiffs claim did nothing to stop the abuse. So that's huge because allowing them to go after the institution, um, that elevates the crime, that elevates the how they sanction it, or the matter or the manner in which they go forward. I'm gonna play a clip for y'all that an attorney really broke it down better than I ever could. She talked about how, for instance, when Cassie sued Diddy, she sued him in a business manner to get a particular outcome. This Adult Survivors Act absolutely enables that outcome, right? As the deadline to sue under the act approached in recent weeks, plaintiffs filed a flurry of cases against more entertainment industry heavyweights and politicians. Sean Diddy Combs was sued by his ex-partner Cassie, real name Cassie Ventura, who alleged a pattern of abuse, violence, and sex trafficking throughout the relationship. He quickly settled the case and was then sued by two more women claiming he sexually abused them. Combs' spokesperson called their claims fabricated and accused the women of exploiting this Adult Survivors Act. That's interesting because he's saying they finding the loopholes, and that this act allows for loopholes for people to bring these claims, allegations, regardless of how much fact or how based in empirical evidence they are. Harvey Pierre, former president of Combs Bad Boy Entertainment, was sued by an assistant who alleged he sexually assaulted her several times between 2016 and 17. Other music executives such as Jimmy Iovine, L.A. Reid, and ex-Grammy CEO Neil Portnow have also been sued by women alleging sexual abuse, while Guns N' Roses frontman Axl Rose was sued by a former model who claims he violently assaulted her in his New York hotel room in 1989. Rose says he has no recollection of ever meeting the accuser. Wow. Photographer Terry Richardson was sued by a model legend. He assaulted her on set in 2004 and then sold photos of the incident. So there should be photos out there, right? If that's what her allegation is, then there should be photos. That should be easy. Um, let's see. Moving on down. We'll go jump down. Cuba Gooding Jr. was sued by two women who said he groped them in two separate incidents in 2018, 2019, while actor Jamie Foxx was sued by Jane Doe plaintiff, who claims he sexually assaulted her at Catch NYC in 2015. Gooding has not commented on the new lawsuits. The restaurant and its employees are also named in a suit against Fox, who claimed the assault never happened. Remember now, it allows for you to sue the person and the institution that allowed it or didn't stop it. What happens now that the act has expired? It may take years before most of the cases filed under the Survivors Act make it to trial, if they ever get that far. And while the window to file new lawsuits has closed, advocates are working on legislative efforts to re-extend it or else find a permanent solution once the New York State legislation comes back into session next year. Advocates argue that statutes of limitation on sex crime are too restrictive and that new legislation would allow survivors to obtain closure as well as let victims who didn't know about the statute or were unable to file a case to come forward with their claims. Wow. So yeah, that just gives you a high level overview. Like I said, I want y'all to go to the cut and look this up. This was written on the 27th, so it was written a few weeks ago, right? So that's why we saw that big headline, about Puffy. I remember it was all over the place, and it caused a domino effect. You know, one of the guys, one of my brothers on Instagram, his name is Doc Montgomery. Y'all should go follow him. He did a recent short where he was discussing my son, the general, and Charleston White, right? And he said it's telling because my son was being sucked in to a persona and not a person. But the lesson in that was what people pay attention to, right? He was saying it's interesting what people, uh, you know, give their energy to. When you master something, brothers and sisters, boys and girls, to master it is to be able to control where your energy goes because we understand where attention flows, energy goes, right? So whatever you water, right? Whatever you give life to, that's going to grow up. So make sure that you're giving life to positive things. Make sure you're breathing life into yourself, people you love, and everything that you get into. But I say that because a lot of people were drawn to this, right? Without knowing. A lot of people are drawn to the madness. And what happens is once something like this happens, there's so many social media outlets now that people just jump on it and they start making these videos, and all of a sudden all of these things start coming out. Now it's not for me to say whether they're right or wrong, right? I'm not for or against them. They earn what they get. But I do have a thinking mind, and in my mind I say, why wasn't all of this explained before time, right? Why didn't somebody say, hey, I witnessed this or I know this about this person, right? Why does it take one person to come out in order for you to speak on evil or said evil? Because that would mean you would be complicit in it, correct? That's just how I think. But we'll see what comes of it. Now, I want to show you guys this. I'm going to show you guys something. Remember, I said I have a lawyer, and she was kind of breaking down how this all happens and what happened. what happened on with the case with Diddy and Cassie, right? And how she sued. And it feeds right into what I'm saying and what I've read to you guys so far, right? So let me pull this up and we're gonna share. We're gonna get into this. All right. Now this is an attorney and she's breaking down the technicalities of how the Adult Survivors Act, how it is changing the way that we're seeing these lawsuits being filed. So pay attention.
Her attorneys were really brilliant. They didn't sue just Diddy, they sued his corporations.
They sure did.
And they sued his corporations and sued as her, in her capacity as an employee. When you do that, it triggers commercial liability insurance. And it triggers another policy called directors and officers. Okay. And we know he's director of these companies as the CEO. So now you got two policies. What happens then is it takes away Puffy's ability to settle. It's not his choice no more.
So it's no longer personal accountability. It's his organization.
It's his organization. And it's no different than like if you hit somebody with your car. Let's say you have State Farm. State Farm gets to decide to settle, not you. You could say, I didn't run the stop sign. That's not true. They're lying. If State Farm says, we don't care, we did our investigation, we're settling. That's it. That's what happened here. So because they added those claims, the corporate insurance carrier got to say, read over and say, oh, hell no, we giving her the money.
We're hearing you. Diddy's public reputation is done.
It's done.
Yeah.
And if he wants to be able to leave anything to his children, he needs to walk away from all of these corporations.
Damn, he can no longer be the head of his corporations.
Well, remember, didn't I say directors and officers liability?
Yeah.
More than likely, what will happen is those insurance companies, they have the ability to say, we won't renew your policy if he continues to be a director or officer.
Wow. So by suing in the business capacity, she really messed Diddy up. But I understand it. It's not Cassie's fault, right? She's alleging the claim. I get it. It's the law, and we can never really be upset with the law because these are the rules. I mean, we can be upset. I should say, how can I put it? We shouldn't be upset at the laws that are already established or the ones that we're facing. I mean, if we are upset, we have to do those things to change the laws, right? We have to lobby, we have to band together. Maybe that's something we should do. Our unity could be more powerful than an atomic bomb. That's what the messenger told us. But no, I'm not upset for people who take advantage or capitalize on laws that are already set in place. What got me about that, well, one of the things that stood out was that the brother said Diddy's public persona or reputation is destroyed. And that's crazy because why is it destroyed? There's been no trial yet. I mean, he did settle, but when we know the specifics and we're not totally ignorant or unaware, don't know, then we shouldn't just assume because somebody made an accusation that he's done, because we don't know how valid the accusation is. And even brothers and sisters, thinking I'm gonna read this somewhere, but see, just because they settled, that's not an admission of guilt. But I understand it's absolutely true that typically when people are accused of a crime, especially when their name is like a brand, right? Michael Jackson, that's why he settled the first time, because they were telling him, bro, we don't want this. We have a brand. We don't want our brand to be tainted, right? So people take their brand or their good name very serious. But what I'm saying is, in our culture, right, in the culture in which we live in, right, the original people, the original man, we should not allow people or allegations or accusations alone to dictate a person whom we see, whether it's a person at the lower end or the higher end. It doesn't matter, right? We're no respecter of stature in society. It's about a universal principle, a cosmic law that has to stay consistent and remain right intact. Hey, we have to go through that process of fact finding before you are before your reputation is totally discounted. Because see, the person who has been accused of something and the person who has been convicted of something, they're two totally different people, right? All I'm saying is let's not throw the person out on the accusation. Let's at least allow the conviction to take them out of there. So with that being said, um I just want to show you guys uh another another not that one. I want to show you guys everybody who has been accused, right? A couple more people who have been accused so that we understand like this is a huge deal. Um Now, we haven't really, one would say we haven't really seen a whole lot of equality or balance in these cases, right? What I've been seeing is a whole lot of uh, Afro American, Black American, original melanated people getting all the attention, right? You raise your hand if you knew Jimmy Iovine had been sued. No one knew that because he's not getting a whole lot of airplay. They're not talking about that. Now, these are the people, right? You got Donald Trump. Whew, that toupee looks rough. Rudy Giuliani. Who would have thought? He was another guy. Uh, Sexual abuse, forcibly touching, among other allegations, right? Of course, we know Diddy. Let's see. I said Jimmy Iovine, uh, Andrew Cuomo. Yeah, we talked about him. Eric Adams, right? Harvey Weinstein. Yep, we know Harvey Weinstein. Bill Cosby. Yeah, they did my man Bill wrong. Axl Rose. Yeah, that was mentioned. Neil Portnow. We talked about him too. These are putting faces with the names, right? Mike Tyson. See, look at that. Look at that. A woman alleged in a lawsuit this January that Tyson violently raped her in a limousine in the early 90s. At the time, Tyson's rep had not issued a statement on this suit. And see, how convenient. Like, whenever I see these, again, not saying that these people are lying, but I have to say to myself, whenever you begin to now accuse or allege that a person that society already deems as a monster, you already understand that your case is more likely to be successful in your favor. Again, that was a reason why I said that I felt like R. Kelly was overcharged. Not that he didn't get justice, not that I said he was innocent, meaning he's overcharged. When they played that, what is that movie? Surviving R. Kelly, right? What that did was vilified him to the millionth power. Now, he wasn't going to get a fair trial, a fair jury trial. If it was just one woman on that jury, he was guilty because they had already smeared him so masterfully in the public's eye that who was going to say this guy was innocent, especially with the buzzings and the rumblings that had happened from the past, i.e., the Aaliyah, i.e., the video where he's allegedly peeing on the girl, right? So, Russell Brand, right? He's one that's getting sued. Jamie Foxx. We see Jamie Foxx. L.A. Reid, right? Terry Richardson. All these people were mentioned in the previous argument. Cuba Gooding Cuba Gooding Jr. I'm not laughing at the accusation or the allegation. I'm laughing at this photo of Cuba Gooding Jr. I'm sorry. Steven Tyler. He's another guy, right? I think he's of Aerosmith. Yep. Singer forcibly kissed and groped her in 1975 when she was 17. So yeah, these are all people, man. These are some of the host of people who were accused, man. These are people who were accused of sexual assault. So now it it talked about criminal and uh civil litigation, right? Civil laws. A lot of people don't know what that is. So we're gonna go over what that is as well, so that we can understand exactly what it is that that people are talking about. Because as far as I knew, right, when you think about civil and criminal, I always just remember the famous OJ trial, right? He didn't he wasn't guilty in the criminal. However, he came back from the civil. And you have to ask yourself, how is that? Right? Because see, a lot of people without being informed, they automatically say, oh, they let him off, right? You know, ignoring the fact that the LAPD was very dirty in what they did. You know, the tapes that they made were very racist or uber racist, right? None of that's taken into consideration. Not, you know, they didn't take into consideration uh, whom he said killed. They didn't look at any of those people's uh, personalities or their track record as human beings. Like, what were they into? Who were these people, right? Were they Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts, or were they people who might have had lifestyles that could have been dangerous? None of that was looked at. But when the criminal, when the civilian or the civil litigation commenced and OJ lost, people automatically said, "See, he's guilty," right? Or they were uninformed or ill-informed as to what these two trials, what the significance of them were. So, or are. So, what we're going to do is we are going to look at the difference between the two. Yeah, we're going to look at the difference between. Here we go. Here we go. Let's see. Let's take a good look. Let's take a good look. Now, again, this is all online. You can do a basic search for this stuff, brothers and sisters. Um, and you'll find it all. But this is getlegal.com, and it gives a great breakdown of civil litigation and criminal. So we're going to go through it, right? In American legal structure, the laws and procedures are generally divided between criminal justice system and the civil justice system. The factors that distinguish the two different legal paths include parties. In a criminal action, the party initiating the process is always a governmental entity. It may be a local municipality, the state or federal government, something like that. That's criminal. In civil litigation, the initiating party is more often a private individual or business entity, right? Now, the basis for legal action. Criminal cases are always based on allegations of violation of a statute, a written law, typically entitled a criminal code. A civil case may allege violation of a statute, but can also be based on common law or judge made law, right? The nature of wrong. In a criminal action, the wrongful act is considered to be one against society as a whole, right? That's why you're paying your debt to society. In a civil action, the wrongful act is considered to have affected only the parties who filed the suit. So it's more or less this just the people who filed. This has nothing to do with society on a whole, right? This is the one that got me, the burden of proof. This is the one that really, when I read it, I said, damn, okay, it makes sense. In a criminal case, guilt must be proven beyond a reasonable doubt. Many experts estimate 90% certainty. In civil litigation, liability must be proven by a preponderance of the evidence, i.e., it must only be shown that it is more likely than not that the defendant was responsible. That's huge because that's saying, listen, it's really up to perception. It's really up to conjecture, right? Intense conjecture, meaning they can say, yeah, we could see that happening. And again, that goes back to what I was saying about how these people are built up before these trials. See, it's been a smear campaign about Puffy. And let me put this out there. In the past, again, celebrities are celebrities. They're human beings. They know different. But people seem to be, like Dr. Montgomery said, people seem to be intrigued with these people. So, okay, in the past, I have heard that Puffy was a jerk of sorts. We all saw Making the Band, or you might want to go back on YouTube and watch Making the Band. You heard the tales from the Locks and all these people, Mace. We saw those public disputes, and it painted Puffy to be like he was an unjust, thieving, uh, mouthy, arrogant CEO. And that could be who he is. I don't know. I don't care. However, but comma, if he's still all of those things, he still deserves due process, right? He still deserves it. But the fact that they would build that up, understand that only goes against him, right? Because we know it's not beyond a reasonable doubt, like in a criminal case. It's only the preponderance of the evidence. So that's likely to happen. So if I know that this kid bullies kids and a kid comes up and says, he bullied me, he punched me, mm, yeah, he probably did it because he has a track record of doing it. I mean, that's logical, but it's not always effective and efficient. That's all. It's not always efficient. I understand it, but it's not always. It doesn't always denote it. It's basically a weakened, diluted law, that diluted way to gain a judgment, or to engage law. I should say it's a diluted way to engage law. That would be the way I put it. So I'm harping on the burden of proof for all of those people who are quick to say he did it. No, he's not. That's not even the nature of civil litigation. So that's not it. The penalties. In a criminal prosecution, the defendant may face fines, incarcerations, or be ordered to make restitution. In civil action, the most common remedy is the payment of damages, although there are instances where a court can order specific performance require that the party do what was promised, right? So we see that there are a whole bunch of differences between the civil process and the criminal process. And the one that's gaping and glaring is the burden of proof, because it's not based on beyond being beyond a reasonable doubt. It's based on a preponderance of the evidence, meaning a more diluted, watered down form of, you know, what actually happened, or what could have, or what's expected to happen. Yeah, but I think about that, man. Again, this is to help you, brothers and sisters, to think critically. What we're doing is nothing that's not done in school. It's nothing that's not done on the higher educational level. And need even forget, if you're not going on a higher educational level, that's irrelevant. You still, how do you know what you think you know? You still need to base it on something. See, when you base your perspective on facts, you are ultimately reaffirming truth, right? You are allowing truth to now come forth. But if you base it on emotion and conjecture and uh, weak evidence, or have a weak foundation, for lack of better terms, it does not allow truth to be brought forth. So, um, so yeah, that was just a little bit about what the differences are. Now, I also wanted to show you guys before I talk, because I want to base everything I'm saying out of literature. I want to show you guys something, right? So now we understand. I did a live before, where I did a recording before, where I dealt with, I think it was the brick gate and its implications on the black community. Uh, I discussed wrongful accusation and how that affects us, because the young lady who was alleging that she got hit upside the head with a brick by a black man whom she did not file a police report for, whom people who were witnesses out there said she did not get hit. They did not understand what she was doing. Um, People were jumping out the window for her, right? People were jumping out the window. People were acting crazy. I mean, it was like, how could you black men do this? And more so, how could y'all stand around and watch? Y'all were such suckers and cowards. That was the commentary. But I wanted to put an emphasis on how we've been wrongly accused and what happens. So with this, kind of did the same thing. I went and I want to show y'all what the literature says about wrongful convictions, right? And how that affects us. So I looked a couple of studies that they had done. I want to just go through them with you. Just go through them with you. So this first one is a PDF called the Race Report, right? And it was back from 2022. the race report. You can find it out there. If you just type in race and wrongful convictions in the United States, it should pop right on up. But it goes through a couple of different things, like the title denotes, wrongful convictions in the U.S. Introduction, and then these are the things. These are the sections. It talks about murder. It talks about sexual assault. Talks about drug crimes. All those good things, right? All those good things. So let's go here. Not gonna show it too long. Not gonna show it too long. Just wanted to get into it with you guys so that you can see it. Just wanted to get into it. This is the stats and the number. Let's see. Yeah. Intentional. I think it said intentional and structural discrimination, right? Because we understand that we live within a system that is has been historically uh, imbalanced when it came to melanated people and these crimes. So here we are up under the sexual assault section, right? And it talks about race and false conviction for rape. 59% of sexual assault exonerees are black, 4.5 times the proportion in the population. 33% are white. That suggests that innocent black people are almost 8 times more likely than white people to be falsely convicted of rape. Unlike murder, these numbers are way out of line with the racial composition of sexual assault convictions. As of the end of 2019, 21% of those serving time in a state prison for sexual assault were black, 39% were white, and 25% Hispanic. Judging from known erroneous convictions, a prisoner serving time for sexual assault is more than 3 times more likely to be innocent if he is black than if he is white. Yeah, so I wanted y'all to see that statistic, and these are credible research statistics. This is not Brother Faheem. This is uh, this article that breaks it down. This is race and wrongful conviction in the United States 2022. That's who's saying this. Now I'll just read a couple of these bullet points. Right, sexual assault. Innocent black people are almost 8 times. I read that 8 times more likely than white people to be falsely convicted of rape. Prisoner serving time for sexual assault is more than 3 times more likely to be innocent if he is black than if he is white. The major cause of this huge racial disparity is the high danger of misidentification of black suspects by white victims of violent crimes. Uh, assaults on white women, assaults on white women by black men. Let me again, hold on, man. Maybe it's assaults on white men by assaults on white women by black men are a small minority of all sexual assaults in the United States, but nearly half of sexual assaults with eyewitnesses with eyewitness misidentification that led to exoneration. So it's been a lot of lying, basically. Eyewitnesses misidentifications do not completely explain the racial disparity in rape exonerations. Some of the misidentifications were obtained by deliberately tainted identification procedures, and black men are also overrepresented in rape exonerations without misidentifications. Black sexual assault exonerees receive much longer prison sentences than white sexual assault exonerees and spend on average more than 4 years in prison before exoneration. Exonerations of misidentified rape defendants are much less common than they used to be. There have been only 2 from rape convictions in the last 12 years. That's because DNA testing is now routinely used to determine the identity of rapists before the trial. This technology has prevented convictions of hundreds of thousands of innocent rape suspects, mostly black men who were accused of raping white women. Now, it's this keeps on saying rape, right? It doesn't really well, it falls upon the sexual assault. It falls upon the sexual assault, but it continuously refers to rape. But yeah, just another one. And these are all articles that you can go online and read for yourself. I would recommend them because you're gonna find out a whole bunch of good stuff, and you're gonna see some things. So let's share one more time. Yeah, I got a whole bunch I want y'all to see so that you can understand where we are and what the mentality is, right? So here's another article uh, written by the Montana Innocence Project. And it goes like this: innocent black people significantly more likely to be wrongfully convicted of sexual assault. A March 2017 report by the National Registry of Exonerations titled Race and Wrongful Convictions in the United States found that black defendants convicted of murder, sexual assault, uh, and drug crimes are more likely than white defendants to later be found innocent. Perhaps the most shocking statistics to come from this report is that a black person incarcerated for sexual assault in 3.5 times more likely to be innocent than a white person convicted. Why are these false allegations so powerful? False allegations, particularly about black men being rapists, have been reinforced over and over again in our history. While shameful, America embraced the allegation a century ago, and American embraces the allegations today. It is imperative to know that the allegation is rooted in history to fully understand how ingrained it truly is in our society. Of course, it is. Like, I'm always shocked at how people, if you running around just taking allegations without due process and accusation, if you are triggered so much that you want to see this person taken down without due process, if you're that person, but in the turn of your head you'll say, oh, it was horrible what they did to Emmett Till, right? It was horrible what they did in Rosewood. Then you're being hypocritical because it's the same concept. That all of those victims, the one thing that they have in common is they are robbed of their due process, and they're robbed because of, like the article said, this has been ingrained in American culture for years. It's historically been ingrained. So what am I saying? What I'm saying is, brothers and sisters, man, we might want to fall back when we hear these accusations. I'm not saying these people are innocent. Hear me when I say, I'm just saying you shouldn't jump the gun. You shouldn't jump out the window. That's foolish and very unwise. And it's not unwise because I'm saying it's unwise. It's unwise because the literature teaches us that historically we have gotten an unfair shake in the judicial system, right? Yeah, so go down a little further. It says, whether it's a woman in Michigan falsely claiming that a group of black men kidnapped her and raped her, another woman claiming a black man kidnapped her 3-year-old and 14-month-old son, whom she actually killed, the infamous Amanda Knox accusing a black man of the heinous murder she was initially convicted of, or even a man claiming that black men stabbed his wife to death, whom he actually killed. Uh, Martin, Martin Z. Johnson wrote an article for The Undefeated. In each instance, the initial story was believable because of the troubling belief that a black man is capable of such a thing. It's because we've always been told this is what black men do. That's what I was saying about Puffy. See, historically, the black man has been made to look like a brute, right? We've been made to look like this animal. So that makes it palatable. That makes it believable. And it's not just collectively. Again, when they're celebrities, they break them down individually, right? They break their individual person down. They start slandering it and stab it. You have to be vilified in order for you to be crucified. There's a vilification that takes place before the crucifixion, right? So yeah, It says the birth of a nation is a necessary part of American history to discuss because it's systemized systematized the idea that black men are violent rapists. Again, it was screened at the White House for a viewing by our country's leaders. Although that was over 100 years ago, the film's message is still ingrained in our society and in our justice system. In fact, we embrace the film's message every time we meet false allegations with unwavering support for the accuser and extreme animosity for the accused before there is a guilty verdict. Woo! That's what I'm saying. That's the reason why, brothers and sisters, I wanted to bring this whole bill to you. That right there is the whole reason. I'm gonna set that right on the counter for the people in the back to read, right? For the people who are legal students, for the people who call themselves uh, 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 having a just and mind that's based in equality. That's it. That's it. And then right up under there, you see the birth of a nation is not the only thing that cemented the stereotype about black men in our country's collective conscious, but it certainly set the stage for future perpetuation of the stereotype. Yeah, that's it right there. That is it. That is it. Yeah, that's what I always think uh whenever people just jump on these bandwagons, right? I'm saying to myself, wow, no due process, huh? He guilty because he's a jerk. He guilty because people don't like him, right? But people run with this stuff, man, and it's awful. It is awful. Um, I actually have uh, 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 I have another one. I have another article, but you know what? That article right there is it was so profound. You know what? I'll skip over that one. And the last one I'm gonna show you guys is just the statistics, right? Just the stats, so that we can see a balance, right? Because this is gonna talk about, uh, you know, the the rate in which people are sexually assaulted, the rate in which they're convicted, right? Because that's being equal, that's dealing in equality as well, right? So this is coming from the Charlie Health page, and it's the 2023 sexual assault statistics, 8-minute read. So sexual assault is alarmingly prevalent worldwide, including in the US. And children, teens, and young adults are not exempt from becoming victims. That's a shame. We have to protect our people, man. And when I say our people, I mean our people on the planet. Sexual assault includes any type of sexual contact or behavior that occurs without clear consent, such as rape, attempted rape, a force of sexual acts performed by the victim, and unwanted sexual touching. It's funny, I was watching something they were discussing. Um, if a man and a woman, if a group of men and women are at a nightclub, right? And we've all been in this situation if we've been out to party at a nightclub, and the women are dancing, and a man comes up on a woman and starts dancing. Is that sexual assault? Now, of course, it's become such a customary practice in our culture that we can sometimes look at it like it's not. But per the definition, it is. It is. Now, I always tell people, I tell my children, it's easier for you to control your emotions than it is to control somebody's reaction. What I mean by that is this: a push is assault. If someone pushes you, that's assault. Yeah. Just like we've seen, it might be a minor form of assault, but just like we see here, unwanted sexual touching. If you grab a woman or a man by the butt or the testicles or the vagina, that's sexual assault, right? Any of that stuff. It doesn't have to be. We think sexual assault, we think rape, right? We think violent rape, right? Brute force rape. But there are other definitions of sexual assault we have to be mindful of. It reminds me of old Charlie, of old Charleston White, when he talked about how uh, young girls are being raped when they're being taken advantage of. I mean, when they're uh, being slept with after being under the influence of alcohol. That is rape. Yeah. And as a former military member, we were briefed several times. If you deal with a woman and she's intoxicated and she hollers rape, well, guess what? Now you're guilty and you got to prove you're innocent. You're not innocent, you got to prove you're guilty because that alcohol is going to do you in. They're going to say, why was she under the influence of alcohol? Even if you were under the influence, why was she under the influence of alcohol? Now, guess what? We fixing to destroy you. So it's like, woo, all right. But nonetheless, while reading statistics about sexual assault can feel overwhelming, knowledge truly is power in this in destigmatizing victims who have experienced any kind of sexual abuse or rape. So here we go. Sexual assault stats and highlights. 50% of women and 30% of men have experienced sexual violence. The highest risk years for sexual violence are between ages 12 and 34, right? 12 and 34. Woo, that's a long period, man. That's what, 22 years? Dang. Most sexual assault victims personally know their attackers. That's why you got to be mindful of where you let your children stay, uh, and watch them at all times. And not just for, I always say when we think of sexual assault, we think of a creepy guy, uh, that's socially awkward. That when you think of going after kids, that guy that's in the ice cream truck that lures them in with some ice cream, something crazy. But oftentimes it can be older kids that can molest children, right? Watch your children around older kids that are older than them, whatever their age, right? It's family members. Watch your family members. Watch who's dealing with your family members. You got to take all this into account because you make your children vulnerable to something that will forever change their lives. Suicidal thoughts and attempts are significantly higher among rape victims. Look at that. Membership in college fraternities and sororities significantly increase the chance of being involved in a sexual assault. And it goes back to what I said when I was in the military, right? When that alcohol gets involved, the crazy things begin to happen. Remember now, it shuts off that part of your brain that controls your inhibitions, right? Or that healthy restraint. See, because when you start drinking that alcohol, hey, you all restraints are gone. That's why people sleeping out, having sex all out in the street. A lot of times they be under the influence of alcohol, right? They be intoxicated, and so they just out there at the savage, beastly level, right? No shame. Animals will sleep around. Well, most animals will. I've never seen a cat, humping around. They pretty private, but you know what I mean. So yeah, watch your brothers and children that are in the fraternities and sororities. General sexual assault statistics: 50% of women and 30% of men have experienced sexual violence. That's a shame. So every 5 in 10 women have been sexually assaulted, and every 3 in 10 men. Mm. What are the statistics of sexual assault? Sexual assaults, unfortunately, a common occurrence among both women and men. Over 50% of women, 30% of men. We saw that. Full or attempted rape has been experienced by 25% of women and 1 in 26 men. On top of that, 1 out of 9 men is forced to penetrate another person at some point in their lives. How many cases of sexual assault occur each year? The average number of rape and sexual assault victims is 463,634 annually in the U.S. This accounts for people 12 years and older. Wow, that's a shame. Who has the highest risk of sexual assault? Young women are in the highest risk category for sexual violence. The highest risk years are between the ages of 12 and 34. Girls aged 16 and 19 are 4 times more likely than any other demographic to be raped or sexually assault victims. So we need to really protect our girls. We need to protect sisters regardless, right? But especially they need to be protected emotionally, mentally and physically. And that starts with education. Excuse me, that starts with knowledge, right? The foundation has to be the knowledge. You have to teach. Listen, these are the facts. Would you not tell your child what the weather landscape was outside? You wouldn't want them to go outside and get frostbitten. You wouldn't want them to go outside and get sunburned or develop a kidney stone from being dehydrated in extreme heat. So you tell them, hey, you have to put on a coat. Hey, you have to drink this amount of water. Hey, you have to do these things in order to keep yourself good. It's the same with our beautiful young sisters, 16 and 19, and that's a vulnerable age. I can see it. Their hormones are off the charts, right? The boys are starting their hormones. They're starting to, you know, try to get their knees open and unlocked. So yeah, it's a vulnerable time. So yeah, we just have to make sure when we have young sisters between the ages of 6, really before that, right? Teach them when they're young. I know what the stats say, but you train them up the way you want them to go. And if you teach them young, then you won't have that issue because they'll confide in you. They'll have a understanding, and also they'll have that knowledge. So yeah, um, yes. So it says, where was I? Where was I? Where was I? Highest risk 60. Okay. What states have the highest rates of sexual assault? California, Texas, and Florida have the highest rates of repeated rape incidents. Ooh, look at that. Look at that. Vermont, Wyoming, and Delaware have the fewest reported rape. Now, I wonder what makes those states have the fewest. That's interesting. But Cali, Texas, and Florida. So y'all need to make sure if you in Cali, Texas, or Florida that you taking extra precautions. At what age is sexual assault most common? Highest risk between 12 and 34. People who are 65 or older are 92% less likely to experience sexual assault compared to 12 to 24, right? What percentage of sexual assaults are prosecuted? Unfortunately, the prosecution rate of rape is low. The issue starts with a lack of reporting the attacks to the police. Okay. It's estimated that only 39% of rapes are actually reported. Of those, just over 16% result in a conviction. Out of all rape incidents, including those not reported, only 6% of rapists serve any jail time. Wow, that's alarming. That is alarming. What is the rate of sexual assault by ethnicity? Among women in the US, 22% of African American women and 18% of white women are likely to be raped in their lifetime. Prevalence is slightly lower in Hispanic community, just under 15%. What percentage of abuse victims become abusers? Sadly, abuse is often a cyclical pattern. Approximately one third of people who experience childhood abuse become abusive toward others later in life. Wow. 80% of the rape victims know their assault, the person who that was the assailant. What are the most common forms of sexual assault in the U.S.? There are two most common forms of rape in the U.S. The first is called acquaintance rape, which is when the victim knows their assailant, and the second is stranger rape, when the victim doesn't know the attacker. Where does abuse happen most? The victims most commonly occurs within the victim's close social circles. For adolescents and young adults, this often means the assailant is a relative, close friend, teacher, coach, or even an immediate family member. That's what I was saying. You got to make sure that you keep your eyes out and that you watch, and not just the babies, the teens too, because we see where sisters 16 and 19 are at the highest risk. Mental health. 80% developed a mental health disorder after being sexually assaulted. 55% developed two or more mental health disorders. Yeah, we got to do better. We have to do better. Ooh, PTSD, man. So yeah, this is it. This is serious. I'm gonna stop it right there, just because it's so much. It's so much. So much. So much. Wow. So yeah, just to have some balance, right? We see uh when it happens, what age, what group is more prone to be predatory, all of those things. But yeah, I really respect all that data. You can't do nothing but respect data because data is nothing but compile facts. That's all data is. They've researched and compiled facts, and now they're reporting it. Um, but you know, hopefully, whenever you guys see something, right, uh, an allegation, an accusation, something like that, before you just offer that unwavering support, let's at least let due process come into place, right? But we live in we're such a trigger society, right? We are such an emotionally charged society, and everything around us feeds into that. Everything around us is conducive to you being emotional. When we understand when you are emotional, you are out of control. That is a feeling, which means it's temporary, oftentimes. And we understand how certain ethnic groups' emotions are our enemies because I have to tell my young son, my older son, and my daughter, when you get emotional out in a traffic stop, we end up burying you. Other people don't have to go through that, right? So, again, it's easier to control your emotions than it is to control other people's reaction. And that's just not the physical. As we see, that's also when it comes to uh, offering support. We have to control our emotion. We have to say, you know what? Although I feel this way, let me wait. Let me engage and let due process occur. Right? Because you know the case that stuck out for me with Bill Cosby, it wasn't what he got wrongfully convicted for. It was Beverly Johnson, aka Miss Trinidad from Martin, when she came up and she alleged that Bill Cosby, she jumped in that bandwagon. She alleged that Bill Cosby drugged her, then grabbed her by a waist, but some kind of way she miraculously escaped. Well, he had sued her in civil court. He was trying to get some money, but it was simultaneously at the same time that he was going through his second trial, which he ended up being wrongfully convicted and served 3 years, 36 months, and then was let out by the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania. But he dropped that case, and there was a defamation case, right, against Beverly Johnson. But I just remember how intense the firestorm was against Bill Cosby. And I think I've probably been on camera to tell the story of when I was in school and we were discussing Spelman College giving the money back for Bill Cosby, and I was kind of kind of irritated by that because I understood that those students were going to be the ones that suffer. And man, when I tell you, without this was early when the accusations started pouring in, right? Bill Cosby was all kind of rapist. He was all kind of uh person who was drugging women. You know, everybody was just. I remember Amber Rose was speaking with Keisha Knight Pulliam. I think Keisha Knight Pulliam was interviewing Amber Rose, and Amber Rose started to go in on Bill Cosby, and Keisha Knight Pulliam said, we're not gonna do that, sweetie, because that man helped me out, me and my family, right? So let's not discuss. If you want to stay on my good side, you don't want to say nothing about him. Let's just keep moving, please. Let's just go forward because we're gonna have a problem, Houston, if you do that. And I can also remember seeing Malcolm Jamal Warner on The View and watching and reading his body language when they begin to then uh, criticize Mr. Cosby, and you know how he kind of laid back and was like, I didn't see any of that. I don't recall any of that being on stage. He's a mentor. He's helped me uh, through a lot of tough times. He's helped me and my family. So, no. And then finally, I remember when Felicia Rashad came out and said, this isn't about those women. This is about the destroying of a legacy, right? She understood. I think she vocalized it best. Like, these people are fanning the flames. Yeah, they understand y'all are going to be triggered, and y'all are now going to call for a neo or nouveau lynch mob against a man who was helping so many people and who was actually trying to make shrewd business moves so that the minds of black people would be elevated, right? So yeah, man, I try to, no, I don't try to do, I lead with logic whenever things happen like that, because um you know, that's again, it's celebrity. What happened with Puffy and Cuba Gooding Jr. Marcellus Wiley, he was an he's a player, but he was a ESPN reporter, or a person who would uh, appear from time to time. But they're celebrities. But the lesson in that, though, is we have to wait for due process, regardless of what's said about the person, regardless of what we heard or what we might feel. It does not matter. It doesn't. Think about your loved one. If it were them, right? Would you want people to automatically just write them off as guilty without due process? Or would you want at least the facts to come out, right? And we understand, being melanated, being an original person, original man, woman, and child in this society, you're a villain as soon as that carbon and that melanin is seen, right? As soon as you come out the womb with that melanin, you public enemy number one, or at least you you are cast into that subgroup that fuels capitalism. Yeah. Yeah. So listen, I want y'all to like and subscribe to the Lead with Logic podcast. We got a lot of great stuff going on, a lot of great bills, a lot of great interviews. And all the interviews I do, man, there are people you'll see who they have uh active businesses, active projects, places that you can go to support them, right? Because we want to support our own. We want to accept our own and be ourselves, right? And part of that is unifying to promote each other, to pass on positivity, and actually engaging once we see this person with this service or product actually engaging, because that's a way to true empowerment and true independence and true freedom, liberation. So like and subscribe to the Lead with Logic podcast. Y'all head on over to my website, grab yourself some merch for the holidays. Don't forget Kwanzaa. And as I always end it, as Brother Malcolm used to say, may we meet again in the light of understanding. Hey, peace, y'all.